Hi, I'm Dennis Young with Issues in Education. I'm here today with Dr. Sherry Eagle, Emeritus Institute of Collaboration at Aurora University. We're in Chicago, and thank you for being here.
My pleasure.
And we have a lot of very interesting topics to talk about because so many schools are trying to affect change, trying to transform education. And you pretty much have had a very big success under your belt already with the John C. Dunham School, and now with the proposed North Lawndale STEM Partnership Academy coming up. You have a second chance to really help students in a whole different type of community, a different type of culture, and pull all that together. So I thought we might just start with your approach to kind of a holistic of how you bring together all these very important voices to take kind of a partnership approach to this and a process model where you tie it all together. Could you speak on that?
So thank you very much again for being here. In both opportunities for the John C. Dunham STEM Partnership School and the proposed North Lawndale STEAM Partnership Academy, there has been an interest in bringing multiple individuals and professionals from varying systems together to think and learn and figure out how they could design outcomes that would ultimately lead to a program infrastructure and a curricula and a program that would benefit the students in which they serve. And they come from a community base, community ideology, that it is the community that has the wherewithal to understand what it wants and believes is good education for their students. John Dewey used to say, what the brightest and best parents want for their children, so should all parents want. And I totally agree, and the communities agree. And so they want to create the best environments. And in order to do that, you have to bring philosophy is that multiple people from different systems will indeed, if they come together in sincerity, will be able to build that program. So you bring them together from business, corporations, non-for-profits, higher education, and school districts, and government. And the theory is, or the belief is, that no one group has more prestige or value in what they have to say than the other group. And they all come with their varying expertise. So there has to, from the get-go, be a mutual trust and respect developed. And if at one point in my career, I was a school superintendent for 12 years, and I have to be honest, I didn't do it. I didn't promote curriculum design this way. I didn't. But if we were to have a do-over, this is the way I believe curriculum needs to be and program needs to be designed. And what it also does is it puts the role of higher education front and center in giving input into K-12 education. And I guess I would also say that higher ed needs to begin to look in this direction as well. So I've been very grateful for the opportunity that the first foray into this in designing the John C. Dunham STEM Partnership School was that Aurora University agreed to lead in this effort and bring together the partners. And we were also fortunate that there was an architect firm that agreed to be part of being at the table, listening and enabling this multi-system approach to design to actually happen.
Well, I'm so impressed with your systems approach. It's somewhat akin to integrated planning at the college level. When you bring that many diverse perspectives and voices to the table, they all have to listen. but they also have to understand what they're hearing. And how do you do that when you're bringing together these groups from the outside the community to have them truly listen to what the community is saying, and vice versa? How do you do that?
Well, the community is represented as part of the group, so they're there, but they're not the only voices. So in the case of the John C. Dunham School, we had one of the leaders of our, you could call it infrastructure or program framework, was a gentleman from Caterpillar. And he is the key supply chain manager for CAT. And co-leading with him was a gentleman who was a professional development professional from the Illinois Math and Science Academy. So this was our first collection. We put people around the table. And several of the people, or professionals, were engineers. And one of the things that came forward as we began to talk, we realized that maybe we didn't quite understand one another.
Right. Right.
So you had teachers, middle school teachers and elementary teachers, and you had engineers from major corporations, and you had higher ed faculty, and we began to realize that what we first had to do was develop a common language that we all understood. And one of the things they said to me right away was, quit talking. You talk. You want to say something, and you just talk on and on. Yeah. You need to get pithy. But once we developed the common language that we all respected, it just began to get everyone excited and ignited about how this could actually take place. And we met weekly for 4 months to create our first program framework, upon which the John C. Dunham STEM Partnership School was developed. Wow. And it's an impressive framework, and it has boded well in terms of success of our school. And that is the same principles. There were 4 major areas in that framework. And those same 4 areas have become non-negotiable now, related to the next project we're working on, which is the proposed North Lawndale STEAM Partnership Academy.
Very interesting.
Yes, and they have now finished their framework with their group of partners, and going through the same idea that they had to develop a common language. They had, but they had to put into their framework elements of having this school in a very urban Chicago environment versus us having our school in more of a suburban environment. And there are definitely differences. The other thing is that in the framework for the STEAM school, which includes the arts to be illuminated, there is a far more kinds of concepts and constructs of dealing with art as, not that we don't teach art at the STEM school, but they're not necessarily illuminated in our framework.
Yeah. So your 2 major goals, one is academic achievement and also character building. And tell me something about how you measure those outcomes. Is achievement determined the same way that it traditionally has been determined, whether it's multiple choice or knowledge that has been memorized, or is it done other ways? How do you measure success?
So what prompted us to be certain that character or personal attributes, which ended up becoming part of the framework, in dialogue with Caterpillar, what was astounding to us was the fact that they conveyed that almost 70% of the applicant pool does not get hired. And the reason for that is because those individuals do not exhibit the concepts of taking on responsibility, and one could argue that that means, what about their integrity and their beliefs about themselves in terms of can you trust, trustworthiness. And when you realize that those concepts are part of conditions for employment and also then once employee success, it behooves one to think that in a curriculum for K-12 education that you need to put that, or for that matter higher ed, you need to put that front and center. That even if you have an educated person, if they don't have the characteristics of trustworthiness and integrity and care, that they're not going to be successful.
Right.
So so that was determined that we would put that in. And they're measured in this John C. Dunham STEM Partnership School through outside evaluation. There was an outside evaluator who was the person in charge of math science for the state of Illinois. And then we also have an internal evaluator who looks at the components and the structure of how we operate that school internally to the university, the connection to the university. And in addition, we look at state test results. And what has shown dramatically is that, our behavior issues in terms of students at the STEM school is virtually none. I mean, we have, obviously these are children, so you're going to have some, but far lower than probably a normal peer group. And that they are conditioned to learn in teams and groups, so they have to be able to exhibit elements of trust. They have to be able to exhibit elements of integrity because they have to depend on one another in order to get and accomplish a goal in their own learning. And the academic learning, as measured on state results, has been far beyond the state norms. So this model with these two components is this. We've kept the integrity of this model for the proposed school in North Lawndale as well.
Well, now that you have this hard infrastructure, the program goes to the hard infrastructure. Let's talk about design a little bit, because designing today, not every architect gets it, if you will. Some kind of bring their own preconceived ideas, and they aren't listening. They're not part of the group. So you brought the architect in at the very, very beginning as you've been solidifying all the different voices at the table. So now they're ready to use their creativity to put out there. How does that design process work to bring all that together? Because it's quite different. A different outcome is what you're trying to achieve.
Well, first of all, the concept of design is so important to us that it is one of the pillars on which the framework rests. Okay. So we want our students to understand the concept of design. So when you put it into the curriculum and you know it's going to be measured, the people that you've assembled as partners all are a part of the concept of design. So the architect is one member of a larger team that brings their expertise, but as I said at the beginning, no one's voice is louder than the next person's voice in order to understand what is best, how this best can be taught. So I'll answer the question, but you kind of think the corporations and nonprofits and business people bring relevancy to content. The architect's role is to bring relevancy to the concepts of design. And higher education, we believe, brings definite content expertise. And it's not just this cut and dry, and teachers bring pedagogical expertise and methodology. How are they taught? What are the principles upon which we can teach children, and what are the steps involved? Now, it's not all exactly lined up like that, but if you use that, you can realize that if the architect's role, the professional architect, and by the way, I think we're all architects at the table because we're all involved in design. But if you think the architect's role is really the one that can bring the most expertise in area of design, then they need to be listening and hearing what is being said and offer ideas like everyone else at the table. But ultimately, they get the chance to take the pen and pencil and not only write down these are the outcomes that we want for children to learn, but with the people at the table, this is the environment, the learning environment that we are going to design in which will enable that learning to take place. And if it's not a hallway with rooms on both sides,
Right.
or even if it is, you have to be able to substantiate why that learning environment will bring forward a culture in which students and teachers and parents will grow and learn to be academically talented and also be people of character. And that is not an easy task. So principal leadership is important to that end. And principals really are kind of the lead architects, if you will, in our school. Teachers are the lead architects in their classrooms. So you have to figure out, what should this place look like called school? And we've challenged Corrigan and Clark on many occasions, and if this, why will this work? And the creation of an environment is, I believe, the principal reason why the John C. Dunham STEM School, Partnership School, has become so successful. The word that I just left out and put back in now, the most important word is partnership. It created and continues to sustain an environment, albeit whether it's bricks and mortar environment or a cultural learning environment, it has sustained that for its students. And our hope, with the help of, we've had an architect, John Clark, at our table in North Lawndale, that as he listens and learns, he continually gives us insight about what could that look like. Here's what we want for the students. Here's maybe what a learning environment like that will look like. But it won't ultimately happen until we get the people assembled who will work there and ultimately create the culture. Then we'll know we were successful.
Yes.
That environment definitely, yes, it nailed it. And we nailed it with the John C. Dunham STEM Partnership School. And we've nailed it with other schools that have been built around the state of Illinois and the nation. We know it because students thrive and it promotes culture. It promotes a sense of character and it promotes a sense of academic achievement. And so maybe it's time we really take a strong look at what our schools look like, and not necessarily have to cut down walls, but how can we utilize them best? So John Corrigan and I have talked about a manual, if you will. How do you use this environment so that it can promote, but maybe now it needs to be tied to how does it promote academic achievement and character? And that's the biggest selling point. How do you enable your school environment to become a true learning environment?
Absolutely. You know how powerful your words are? It truly is when it comes to design, because so often what I see happening is the architect will bring design features and philosophies from another project and push them on and try to apply them to the next. And it doesn't work that way, because there's no two learning environments that are identical.
It rests with the community.
Yeah, it rests with the community, all the voices at the table. And I don't think everybody understands that, or they don't put the kind of effort that needs to happen to get those kinds of outcomes, because it takes a huge amount of effort.
Well, it's the effort, but it's also, what we're saying is the responsibility doesn't just rest with the architect. The responsibility rests with this partnership group to make sure you're asking the right questions. What will this environment look like that will lead to the success of answering of the essential questions? And I don't necessarily think it always is about the more money, the better the project. I think it's what will this how do you create the environment in which learning will take place? And you have to really dig down with, higher ed has a role here, and K-12 school districts have a role, but I also think corporations, because they look at their system, they look at our system, education system from a different lens, and we need to all understand those lenses, and the nonprofit world and government. So, if you have a school, and it's not about only the bricks and mortar, but perhaps the architect's role also is not just about bricks and mortar. It's about how do you create this wonderful environment within the environment you have,
That's right.
this learning
The
environment.
culture for learning.
Yes.
Yeah, outstanding. Boy, we've covered a lot of outstanding topics here in great depth. So how do you know when you got it right? How do you know that? You don't know it necessarily when you put the pencil to paper. You don't know it when the brick and mortar is coming up. You're hopeful. You're very optimistic, very excited. But at what point do you know that you've really got it right? Is there data that needs to be brought forward? Is there observation? How do you know you got it right?
Okay, so if you go from a systems thinking that this partnership team all has a vested stake in the success of this project, it's not just about the superintendent or the school board going, oh, this is exciting, the school is being built. But you have a broad base, for lack of a better word, stakeholder group that has all decided that they are not only have invested perhaps some capital into this, but they also have invested their name on it, and they have invested the fact that they are going to participate in the teaching and learning of these students. Now, it's not, to determine if this is successful, is you've got corporations saying this is what we envisioned, and you have universities saying this is what we envisioned, and the reason it's what we envisioned is because we can do our professional work here, and we can grow and learn here, and everyone under the roof is going to be evaluated for the learning. And if we have an area that we believe we aren't as successful in, it's not just your problem, Mildred, it is, or the teacher's problem, it is all of our problems to figure it out. And even in the John C. Dunham, the John C. Dunham STEM Partnership School, they meet with their partners on every 6 weeks. And now I think they do it quarterly. And they check, how are we doing? And where do we need to move forward? And how can we change? Or what do we need to, and the curriculum is evaluated from a partnership perspective. So how do you know that we're there? It's not an end thing, oh, good, we made it, but it's all along the way, checking to be sure that students are learning as measured by their teacher in the classroom, as measured by the partners, as measured by tests. We don't use standardized tests, but state tests, and an evaluator that's coming in and saying, not only are the students learning, but the parents are learning and the teachers are learning. There's a broad expectation. One of the things that our president, Dr. Sherrick, gave each of the teachers at the STEM school are 8, now I've forgotten, I want to make sure I have the right, I'll just put it this way, graduate courses, scholarships, so that they can continue their learning, because we believe that everyone under that roof needs to continue to learn. So.
When we talked earlier, you shared with me the concept of the quality of life plan. Could you expand on that a little bit and the importance of that in the process of learning? Well,
in the community of North Lawndale, they developed a quality of life plan, and they presented that quality of life plan to over, when it was completed, to over 300 people in November of 2018. I was there. There was like huge crowd at Old St. Pat's Church. And in that plan, there are like 8 to 9 areas, from education, recreation, and safety. I apologize, I don't have, but multiple areas that the community believed needed attention and needed a direction and a plan for that. And that plan right now, this year, has received a distinction of one of the finest quality of life plans in the state of Illinois. And in that quality of life plan, which was the plan from the community, it's the community's plan, was to develop a STEAM partnership school modeled after the John C. Dunham STEM Partnership School. So it's in the quality of life plan.
See.
And so we, at those that worked with the John C. Dunham STEM Partnership School, Aaron Carter, the director, and 3 or 4 teachers, Cordigan and Clark, because they were the architects, several of our corporate partners, Exelon, Caterpillar, Cabot Microelectronics, as well as Fermilab, have all come with us to help to become partners with the community. The leading university for the North Lawndale project is the University of Illinois at Chicago. Obviously, North Lawndale is in their neighborhood. But Aurora has, under the auspices of their Board of Trustees and Dr. Sherrick, have given much support so that we will make sure that this project is as successful as it can be.
Well, having the opportunity to sit close to you and watch your expression, I know North Lawndale is going to be a success. I can see years of experience.
My prayers every night.
That you're wanting to share with others and bring others to the table.
It's a group. It's not me. I'm one of many.
But it takes everyone to be that much that degree of conviction, because it doesn't happen in 1 or 2 meetings, as you described it.
No,
it's a love of labor.
It's a process.
It's a
you
process.
have to be patient. Not all corporate and nonprofit groups want to be as patient, because it's many times you want to give your dollars to a corporation so that you get an employee base, and you want to put that money in high school development, and I get that, but it takes a corporation, not unlike Exelon and Caterpillar and Cabot Microelectronics and BMO Harris and Cinespace, and I'm going to miss some, I know, and I apologize, but they realize that it starts with young children and being able to influence their lives along the way, so that we do have the employee that will be successful. And these partners all take their role of influencer to the curriculum, influencer to the design of the bricks and mortar, and influencer of the implementation of the program very seriously, and I will say, as passionate as I. So they're a wonderful group of people.
Well, thank you for coming today.
Thank you.
Thank you very much. It's been very pleasure meeting you.
Pleasure.
And I hope everyone has an opportunity to listen and probably re-listen to this video, because the depth of what you've shared, I think, is impactful. And but please reach out and contact Dr. Sherry Eagle. And it's been wonderful to talk to you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.